Well, so let's have this conversation. You all saw that promo there, but it's also because we want to bring the discussion about agriculture and the subject of food security and how also we can bring the needed assistance, help, pull resources to the average farmer to your discussion platforms. And averagely, according to what the statistics are, we have about 5 million peasant farmers in our country, and they cultivate just within the ranges of, it could be an acre or sometimes just 2.5 acres. And when we say an acre, you know, the ordinary plots that we have, 4 times that. And so if it's 2.5 acres, it means that we're talking about 8 plots and a half or something of the sort. So ultimately about 10 plots, and that will be 2.5. But many of them have great difficulties. And we've had all the discussions and the policy directions about planting for food and jobs. We've had the numbers of what the cultivations are and the sector numbers also reducing over the last couple of years. But government wants to situate all this in a better perspective. But what about the smallholder farmers and their organizational representatives? And that is why, well, in collaboration with Joy News and the Multimedia Group, we're putting together this conversation with the Ghana Trade and Livelihood Coalition. And fortunately, we have them in the studio. They are represented by Ibrahim Akabela. And thank you for joining me, Ibrahim.
Thanks.
And also we have a regular who hasn't been on the show for some time, but usually will come on the show and help us with the discussions. And Charles Nyaba, he is with the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, if we want to situate all this, and we know you're doing this with the General Agricultural Workers Union and the Private Enterprise Federation, you want to make sure that smallholder farmers are in a better perspective. But really, what's the situation of ordinary farmers in our country today?
Thank you, and good morning to the listeners. The situation of an ordinary farmer, especially the smallholder farmer, is not different from what we have in 50 years ago. Majority of them still use hoe and cutlasses. They farm between 1 to 2.5 acres. They have difficulty access to credit. They use their own knowledge because of a limited extension services. So their average yield per acre is not actually something that we can boast of, that we've made progress. Yeah.
Okay. And over the years, would you say, Ibrahim, that we've been able to extend the needed help to the farmers as they need it? And let's say you take the last 5 years, or even the last 2 years, so to speak.
We've done our best, but it's not enough. It wasn't enough, actually. Because the output of a farmer really explains exactly how a support measure has been able to go further or not. And from what we have seen over the last 5 years, yields of farmers are quite low. So it's not enough to actually sustain them, how much more even agro-industry. So basically, there is a lot more that has to be done. The fertilizer subsidies, the seed subsidies, yes, they've gone a long way to support some farmers. But it is not actually the ultimate. There is a lot more that has to be done, infrastructure-wise, ensuring that the climate, the environment, especially with credit, is available, and that the systems that exist are supportive to the extent that a farmer producing something is aware that at the end of the day, I'm getting a market for it, and that is going to go through a number of processes to ensure that consumers actually benefit from the work of that farmer.
Well, it's quite interesting that each of the time, and I have to still stay with you, that when we're situating the states or the situation of the ordinary farmer, we always tend to be at a point of criticism or critique instead of trying to situate the discussions of being in a position of perhaps eliciting the needed assistance. We always talk about how we need to get to the next level. It could be like how the developing countries, the Southeast Asians, are doing it in large acreages. But can we go this way in the next 10 to 50 years and still be relevant?
Yes, we can.
Cultivating small lands and just the yields being small, and the farmers will be okay and we'll have a good agricultural system?
Yes. Here again, it's about the systems that we have. We are in a particular context where we have a larger number of producers being smallholder. Then of course, whatever policies we have that we develop or formulate need to actually have that particular, their nature in perspective. And then whatever actions you put in place should be able to deal, with the challenges that they have. Currently, we have policies that pronounce smallholder farmers as the singular most important factor in productivity. But the actions that we take to ensure that they get all the needed support, not just one aspect of it, but a complete whole of support measures to be productive is not actually available. So you find out that the three levels where government is concerned in regards to ensuring that the institutions, individual agricultural institutions that are supposed to provide that particular service, and of course collectively as institutions, ensuring that there's coordination amongst them to ensure that farmers get what is needed. It's very lacking. Even farmers among themselves. Charles just mentioned the issue of extension advice. It is something that needs to consistently be upgraded. What happened 50 years ago could change as a result of climate, could change as a result of new information, could change as a result of differentiation in soil. So we need to always upgrade that. So the capacity even within the actors themselves is a challenge. Of course, service provision is one critical aspect. If you don't plow your land very well, now that we're still using hoes and cutlasses, you don't plow it timely, especially because of rainfall patterns, changing rainfall patterns and all that, then of course you're going to have a problem. So you find out that annually, all these, we have problems moving, through all these three sections. Government challenges, either or what I call private sector challenges in terms of service provision, or maybe challenges within the actors themselves, among the actors themselves, in terms of ensuring that productivity actually sort of gets the benefit of all the support that is provided.
Well, it's strange that we always say some of these things, but can we stay the same and be comparable to some of the best countries? Can we decide to be doing what we're doing all the same? Maybe improve the extension services like Ibrahim is saying, and then be able to say we can cultivate enough, not only for food sustainability, but for the next level of the value chain.
Yeah, I think before I even come to that question, I would like to
add something
to what Ibrahim said. The claim that we always criticize, I don't think is always the case. When we come here to discuss about weaknesses of certain programs, we would have already provided recommendations to government. And I must say that some of the things that you see government doing in terms of increasing investment in the agriculture sector came as a result of some of the recommendations that we give. As to whether we can remain as smallholders and still produce to meet the food needs for consumption, for industry and for export, I think we don't need to wholesale import what developed countries like US
Why not?
or EU
Why
need
not?
to get where. Yeah, I'm putting this in perspective.
Please put it.
Yeah. You see, when you look at our structure or our farming industry in Ghana, the land tenure system is such that a household, a farming household, cannot own more than 10 acres. We have 2-3 acres, and we all depend on that land for our survival. So if you want to go large scale, what are you going to do to the rest of the people? And you can't ask them to combine their lands to be able to do that. Apart from that, when you take industrial countries like the US, you have few people dependent in the agriculture sector for their livelihoods. So majority are in industry. But we've not been able to develop our industrial sector to the extent that it will be able to absorb the surplus labor that will move from agriculture sector to that sector. So we need to still develop our smallholder system. Because when we go to India, is the system we are practicing is what they're doing. But
it's a replica of the African system.
And they're doing far better because you go and then average farmer has 1 to 2 acres.
So Charles,
but the yield per acre
what is India doing better than us then?
One,
or perhaps the other South Asian
countries? Let me come. The major constraints to our smallholder farmers today is water for farming, so that we'll be able to farm all year round. So you go to northern Ghana and you see majority of the youth and the active labor force moving to southern Ghana to go and farm because they don't get enough rains to farm. You go to India and every household they have at least a dugout or drip irrigation. So they are able to farm all year round. Apart from that, the losses is very minimal. One major constraint that we face in Ghana is we produce so much, and you have over 50% going wasted. You take yam, for instance, we lost about 60% of yam that is produced. If you take rice, we lost between 15 to 30%, and most of these always come after harvest. You take maize, we lost between 1 to 25%. You take tomatoes, in some instances, we can even get 100% loss. Cassava is the same thing. We've not put enough measures in place to be able to preserve the small that is produced. Because you go to most farming communities, they produce, they are not able to sustain it to the next season. Just because they don't have storage facilities, there's no processing facilities in place for the perishable goods like tomato, garden egg, pepper, and what have you. But you go to India and the situation is different because they tackle it from all the angles. So our discussion that we are going to have, we are looking at the entire value chain of the agriculture. We are not even limiting it to only the mainstream production. We are also looking at the traders. What are their constraints? The transporters. Most of the food is not able to come from interland to the cities because we have problem with our transportation network. But those areas are normally ignored. As you can see, look at what we did last year and we are doing today. The focus has been on the main production. Give them fertilizer and seed, and that is all. You give them fertilizer, they increase their production. What happened again? So what we are thinking is for our smallholder farmers to be more efficient, we need to look at the entire value chain. We shouldn't focus all the investment on only seed and fertilizer. And when we do that, I think we can go for it.
Well, Ibrahim or Mr. Kwalibila, haven't you had this conversation before? Because somebody will say, as a way of criticism, we've become a nation of talkers than perhaps just not doing the needed actions or taking the needed action to make sure that we meet certain milestones. And it will be the same here, right?
Unfortunately so.
That's the case?
Yes.
Because it's not as if there's a new conversation,
it's not.
is it?
It's not a new conversation at all. But, I mean, if you look at what we've been doing over the years, we've moved from one policy to the other, FASDEP 1, that's the Food and Agriculture Sector Development Policy, to FASDEP 2. We are implementing the Medium-Term Agriculture Sector Investment Plan. We're actually going into the third one now.
Another book long talk.
Another book long talk. If you look at the profiling of the experience that we've had so far in the implementation of policy, we focus on 2 sections out of 6 objectives. Food security and emergency preparedness and increased growth in incomes. Basically looking at productivity. But all the other elements that required investment, you know, to be able to be supportive to productivity, were ignored. Research and development, for example. I mean, we've been talking, I mean, and the whole talk, a lot of talk, I mean, has actually gone on about the benefits of research and development. We don't put money into it. And therefore, with agriculture, where we need innovations, we need the use of technology, we need the use of science, you go back to the same old way of doing things, and therefore you don't move forward. And therefore we repeatedly then go back to discuss the same issues. So until we get to a point that we actually ensure investment reaches the right areas, you know, on a timely manner, of course we'll continuously talk about some of these things. And that's why this discussion is going on this week. The fact that we need to look at the whole system. How do you ensure that beyond productivity, that we are actually able to produce enough, you know, not just in terms of quantity, but also, of course, the quality, because that's also very, very important. Because the system talks about how you can get very quality food to the consumer. And that requires a whole lot of agencies, it requires a whole lot of private sector operatives, it requires a whole lot of capacity, you know. And therefore, the coordination aspect should be very, very strong. Until and unless we actually go that way, of course, we would have that particular repeated discussion about the same issues.
Well, and it's good that you mentioned India, because I was reading about India yesterday evening or in the night before sleeping, and we're told that they also tend to have some sort of assistance from their state's governments.
Yeah.
But it means that they have been consistent on the subject. They also are very good at technology. So it also helps to complement to, they may remain rural, but there's that level of complementary from the other sectors. So the sectoral roles are important. How are we sure that this conversation we've always been having, for which even the next one, the 27th, we're going to have, is not going to be had in isolation, in which we want to improve smallholder farmers in their states, but then ultimately the industries that will be needed to make sure that we are the off-takers, okay, will definitely be also improved at the end of the day. We'll have the good roads that will be needed to do the transportation. The farmers will have the needed facilities, or perhaps credit to be able to develop pack houses before even we have the and it's good that you mentioned all that. How are we going to make sure we don't have this conversation in isolation?
If you look at the stakeholders or the partners who are implementing this project, it's a blend of both public sector, private sector, the donor community, the farmers themselves. I must admit that some of the constraints that we just talked about is not limited to that government is not performing its role. Some of the constraints are attitude. We just need attitudinal change. That the farmers themselves, in some occasions, refuse to apply the technology where it is needed. So that is one problem. If you take the financial institutions, they resist, or they are reluctant to increase investment in the agriculture sector because of the returns. And this is coming as a result of the attitude of some farmers who always their problem is to get the credit. After receiving the credit, a whole lot of excuses are coming in. You look at the private sector, and the focus is on financial investment, but the real investment in the agriculture sector is limited. So we want to make the case for all these people to come together. If government agree to create the enabling environment, because just like I said, the Minister of Agri will be there, Minister of Finance will be there. We are bringing Minister of Trade on board, and then local government. All these people are coming for strategic reasons, because we are thinking that you can't talk of improving private sector investment without linkages with the Ministry of Trade and Finance. We saw that you cannot talk about input distribution without bringing those who are importing the inputs.
Haven't we known, and haven't we been doing all this all along?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that.
Because those ministries and agencies and departments exist to give the needed help to you, the ordinary farmers, and even the next level along the value chain anyway.
But what you should understand is the managers in those ministries are we, the people who have been put there. And they are not the same people who have been there over the years. So we need to continue to talk. We can't say because we spoke in the last year and it didn't happen, we should relax. We need to continue to hammer it, and one day things will change. Now, what you should also understand is that we also have the donor community who are expressing interest in this whole conversation, because we also think that we need to also target them to change their direction of investment. So I cannot say with certainty that this conversation is just going to one day perform wonders, and then we see revolution. But we are thinking that the results that we'll get as the conversation goes on, every time we'll be able to make the needed impact.
Okay, but Ibrahim, if we're having this conversation and you are just the leaders, how does it trickle down? It beats my mind. So you're going to sit in Accra, University of Ghana it is? Just going to have this conversation.
Let me take that question.
And the ordinary farmer is going to be somewhere in Kintampo or
no. Let me
or somewhere located in the western region. And that is going to improve their lot?
I would like to take that conversation. Okay. You see, this whole project is not just limited to the forum we are doing. We started this in somewhere September. We had interaction with the farmers. We had interaction with the traders. We have interaction with the transporters. And all of them have their representatives in the areas, because we have representatives from Upper East, representatives from the Brown Half region, we have representatives from Volta, representatives from Greater Accra, where production is taking place. So actually the conversation is not limited to people in Accra, but it's also bringing on board the main actors who are in the grassroots level You understand? So what is going to
Who are the main actors?
That's the farmers, the traders, the transporters.
They can understand all this big English you're about to speak?
No. They are coming. They are coming and they are going to speak in their native language. We created a platform for them to actually lead in the whole conversation. So it's not like we are in Accra. We use Accra because Accra seems a bit central to us. And then the people who are supposed to be part of the conversation, because we are bringing them from all the various parts of the country. So it's not actually limited to widows in Accra.
Currently, this is what happens, and we all know Agbogbloshe and all that. So we have business women who are the intermediaries. They have the money. They take the trucks to the farming communities, and despite the poor roads, they collect the farm produce, etc. You're thinking, if we consistently do these dialogues, their situation will be better off, and also that of the farmers. By what means? They collect the refuse, the produce, and what happens?
No, currently,
we're supposed to send them to a factories, ideally, or where, or to the market.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility of solutions. Currently, what the women are doing, I mean, they are one of the largest sources of market for farmers. I would say they go through a lot of risks to do that. You know, traveling on vehicles, on bad roads, you know, armed robbery, accidents, and so on and so forth. You know, and of course, because of the nature of the roads, a lot of the produce goes waste. They lose a lot in getting it to Accra. So they take that in consideration when they are buying it from the farmer, you know, because of those associated risks. So therefore, when a farmer says, I'm being cheated, I mean, the trader would not see it that way. Therefore, they calculated all the losses that they would have before getting to Accra. So in terms of getting the thing across, because currently it's just enough because of the post-harvest loss issues for our markets. But then, if we want to be able to have enough agro-industry, then we need to be able to ensure that the supportive systems that we have in terms of good rules, the warehouses where we can put excess, I mean the credit to ensure that the farmer produces enough, you know, increases their yield. You know, we are able to provide that for the farmer to be able to ensure that at least we produce enough. Then we can be talking of establishing agro, concerns, you know, to then be able to add value to all those things. So we have a lot of work to do, and it's not about criticism. I want to just correct one issue. You mentioned earlier that it's a collaboration with GTLC, but of course it's PFAG that is leading that. We are only supporting.
It's their baby.
It's their baby, so we are supporting.
So you're supporting.
We are only supporting, yes.
So if we want the life of the ordinary farmer to improve, how will the improvement in the value chain have an effect on the peasant farmer, who is somewhere in the Kwame Osei group?
Yeah, you know, just like Blair was talking about, the life of the peasant farmer cannot improve even if we give him or her the credit, we give him the extension services, and there is nobody to take that produce after production to the consumer. Now, we spoke to a trader in Techima market who said that I personally asked the trader, I said, okay, talking to the farmer, they said you cheat them, you use big sacks, they call it bush weight, to weigh the maize, and when you get to Accra, you put it in Accra weight, which is a smaller sack. Well, I told him, look, my brother, you don't understand what we go through. Sometimes I can buy the produce, we'll get to the road because of the attitude of police. We can spend 2 days on the road before we move to Accra. You get to Accra, if you are not lucky and it rains, places to park the maize is not even there. So sometimes we can even lose everything. So for me to buy from the farmer, I factor in all those things. So when a farmer hears that a bag of maize is 250 Ghana cedis, and I'm buying from him or her for 100 Ghana cedis, they think I cheat them. But I don't cheat them. What I go through, sometimes I even make losses. So the point I'm trying to make is, for us to be able to change the life of that farmer in the rural community, we need to address the constraints that prevent the product produced in that village
right from the farm
to the consumer.
Okay.
Now, when you do that, you are not only improving productivity. What you also do is that you create jobs in the rural community or farm activities, because people will move there to do packaging, to do value addition, to do cleaning, like setting up processing machines and other things, and employ other people. So when we are able to do that and reduce the losses, the farmer will produce and make profit. And when that farmer makes profit, he's able to expand. He's able to put away his hoe and cutlass and go into using improve machinery to harvest.
Oh,
but that's what we've not been able to do. Let me give you a story of what happened in Nasia, in the northern region. A farmer cultivated 15 acres of rice. Everything was good. It got to harvesting. They come together as a group and then arrange for a combined harvester. They waited for a combined harvester for more than 2 weeks, and the harvester never came. Fire set in and burned everything. So the farmer lost 100%. And this is not only a story of what happened in Nasia. It's happening in all other places where we see farmers produce, and at the end of the day, everything have to go wasted. We went to Adan, and the woman told us that, look, I produced my tomatoes. The market woman came and said the tomato is so good because the Burkina one is coming. So when we buy this one, we will make losses. I just asked them, how much can you offer? They refused and left. I also left the tomatoes there, and everything went wasted. And this is happening. So for us to be able to improve the well-being of the farmer, we need to actually look beyond just supporting them to produce. But we should also look at other actors who have constraints that prevents them from providing services to those farmers.
Well, then it means that sometimes the state's own policies and intentions maybe not well-intentioned, maybe well-intentioned, but not adequately implemented. For example, we're supposed to have a policy of planting for food and jobs. So if we have enough produce, then what happens? And it means that you only have to continuously keep drawing the attention. It means that as a state, we're not getting it right, are we?
I mean, what you're saying is just apt, and I want to cite an example. Some few years back, the government decided to mobilize farmers into groups, what they call FBOs, farmer-based organizations. That was led by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. MOFA went out and formed what they call the MOFA FBOs. But in reality, we have at the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations a department called Department of Cooperatives. That is well-resourced, that has the mandate, you know, not in terms of human resources, not in terms of money and logistics, to be able to mobilize consistently and sustainably farmer-based organizations, not just in agriculture, but across the board. This department is not functioning, it's not well-resourced to actually go out there and work. So any organization that leads the mobilization of farmers, you know, in Ghana will not be able to sustain it unless and until the Department of Cooperative does that, and does that well, of course with the support of government. And you find that in a whole lot of areas where policy implementation is concerned, some institutions take up roles that is not their mandate because it has a budget. And they want to chop. And of course they run it. After 1 year, 2 years, it closes, and then everything sort of becomes still. So until we really focus on ensuring that policy implementation is targeted to the institutions that are mandated to do it, and they do it sustainably over a long period of time, of course these problems will always crop up.
But then it means that we're far away from, let's say, experimenting with some of the latest scientific updates to be introduced in our agricultural system. Because you go onto YouTube, you watch nice documentaries about new technologies that are being implemented on large scale, massively on farms, etc. And because our own is smaller holder, we can implement that, or we can do that simultaneously, adopting the right technologies.
We can do. What we always say is that, you see, when a technology comes, no matter how good it is, there are negative part of it. So we look at the positive ones and pick them, and then leave the negative ones.
Well, definitely we may not have been picking the right things, because if we're picking the right things, agriculture should be like the top ones.
No. Let me say this. You see, our farmers in the north are producing sorghum for Guinness Ghana. The major constraint they have this year was how to harvest the grains. So, and they produce in smaller quantities. You can't say because in US you can have combined harvesters that you put on the farm that will use 2 hours to harvest about 100 acres. You bring the same thing here, it won't work. You look at appropriate technology that they can use to do the same harvesting with a lesser labor. You take soya. We need soya for poultry and other things, and demand for soya is very high. You go there, the major constraint in maize production. I personally produced 5 acres of soya in Bushegu. That was in 2014. I couldn't pick one bag.
Why?
Because during the harvesting, it was difficult to get labor. Because what we do is that we uproot it with hand, and then you hit it with sticks.
Do they have a technology that goes beyond it?
As we speak, we've not been able to develop any appropriate technology.
But we have KNUST. What happened to them?
I don't want to go that
They're
tangent,
engineers.
but the fact
agricultural engineers. They're not able to produce anything for you to harvest beans.
So that's our problem. So that's why we keep saying that, look, let's look at domestic problems and then find domestic solutions to that. And I'm very happy with this man, is it Kojo Safo Kantanka. And I thought that we should have taken advantage of what this man is doing and send him to the grassroots to develop appropriate technology that actually meets the needs of our farmers. But we are not doing that. If you look at most government mechanization facilities that they provide, what are the focus? Bring big tractors, bring big combine harvesters, and you do the bit. But it's not working for us. The mechanization centers we set across the country, where are they? You cannot find any.
Well, we used to have the Irrigation Development Authority.
They are still there.
IDA and all that.
IDA is still there. But
the community in which I grew up in, Ashama, they had one. It was working extensively. Now it's been destroyed, though. But back in the day, it used to work very well. So they had a dam that will...
Yeah. No, that's the point. The idea is still there. I spoke to a farmer yesterday who is in Accra. She called me that she's looking for something small to do. I said, but you're not cultivating your rice. I said, no. She and her family, they have 3 acres. And they said portions of the land under the irrigation, they shouldn't produce because there's no water. So they took 2 acres from her and gave to a different farmer. And that 2 acres was not enough for her and her children. So she have to move to Accra to look for jobs. So this tells you what is happening in the grassroots. Because the areas that we actually need to push more investment, we've not been able to do that. And I must say that for last year to date, there has been some efforts to increase investment in the agriculture sector. Even though we have issues with the direction of where that investment goes, but we think that if you consistently take that path and then we target well, there will be better future for the smallholder farmer. The launch of this One Village, One Dam project, we are very excited, and
It's been launched?
Yeah, so it's been launched.
Where's the first dam?
Baumia was in the Upper West.
Okay.
Yeah, but we just hope that we will put politics aside and look at what is in One Village, One Dam that can benefit farmers. Just like I said earlier on, water for farming these days is a problem. And it's not limited to only Northern Ghana. Even Southern Ghana is there. So if you're able to package it well and put politics aside and then help policy to back it, so that if any other government comes, they'll pick it up, it will take her to a different level.
And so this conference will also help shape the whole agenda.
Yes.
What sort of agenda do you think this conference can set for the next 10 years? Or let's say for the next year for us to be thinking about?
I think it will be good for Charles.
Yeah, but before he comes in, I mean, just through your own thoughts, so to speak.
First, we need to look at research and development. We need to invest more.
You think it's important?
It's very, very important.
We haven't researched enough in Ghana?
In fact, we haven't actually funded it. We haven't funded it well enough in the last 10 years. We have paid researchers, but we haven't actually funded it. So you would have, and of course, that kind of coordination between research and then the private sector is also very, very important. You mentioned the appropriate technology. It's the private sector that can actually express interest and invest in ensuring that they are actually able to sort of increase production of such technology. If the linkage between research and development and private sector is not good enough, of course you will not have that. So these are for me the areas that we should focus on, and then where the Ministry of Food Agriculture or the government's kind of mobilization efforts are concerned, ensure that the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations is well, especially the Department of Cooperative, is well resourced to ensure that by the nature of our agriculture and the actors in there, we're able to capacitate them to deliver in the investments that are made in that sector.
So which people are going to have the conversations alongside you?
We have the Private Enterprises Federation. We have the banks, Stanbic Bank, Agricultural Development Bank, Opportunity Bank. We also have Gen Bank. We have the hospitality industry. We are bringing all this because we thought we need to look beyond just the farmer. But you also
are you
look
bringing
at
the AAG?
Yeah, we are bringing all of them.
All of them?
Yeah, and then you were asking what the conference is supposed to do. Actually, we have one of our major funders who have so much interest in agriculture, and they want this conference to direct their next 5 years line of investment, Open Society Foundation.
The Open Society
Foundation, yeah.
The Open Society Foundation.
Yeah. Actually, they want to use this conference to direct their line of investment in the next 5 years. So if the conference came out that the challenge in Ghana agriculture sector is not necessarily supporting farmers with fertilizer, but you also look beyond that to feeder rows. I mean, that can also inform them as a way to put their resources in. We are also bringing Ministry of Food and Agriculture and Trade and then Finance, because we want them to have first-hand information from the farmers and other stakeholders in the sector. Things that actually prevents them from delivery. And that will also inform them when they are doing their budget or when they are coming out with policies. So we are very hopeful, and then yourself, multimedia is
Fantastic.
in. We thought that some of the problems are not properly communicated, because when you guys picked up the Galamsey issue, now we are seeing the results. So we just thought that we've been doing a lot in the dark. The public are not aware of the constraints. The policymakers are not aware of the constraints. But if you bring people like yourself on board, we are able to communicate whatever problems and recommendations that will be given, so that our policymakers can pick it up. So we just hope that the conference will actually contribute to something.
Well, now we know that that conference is coming up on the 27th and the 28th of March. It's going to be at the Center for Africa Wetlands, the University of Ghana, Legon, and the theme for the conference is the smallholder in Ghana food system. And I've had in the studio Ibrahim Akabila. He is with the Ghana Trade and Livelihood Coalition. They're supporting the main event holders. That's the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, who is represented here by Charles Nyaba. Good morning to the two of you. It's been a great discussion. Again, agriculture is always going to remain passionate at the heart of many people, because we know that you till the land but you toil. And at the end of the day, we don't get to see the end result reflecting the lives of the ordinary farmer. And our country could have been better off, right?
Yeah.
All right, so now let's move on. Cow dung and horse feces have taken over the Paga crocodile pond, apparently. And the sacred crocodile pond is one of the major tourist attractions or site from which the people of the Upper East region town of Paga generate some revenue. The habitat of harmless reptiles attracts averagely. The habitat of harmless reptiles attracts averagely between 400 and 500 local and foreign visitors in a good season. There are fears the pond could lose its fortunes and rich history if steps are not taken to rid the site of animal waste, other filthy materials. For our Ghana Month series today, Prince Appiah visited there and now reports.
A story is told of a man called Nave who settled here after crocodiles helped him cross a river to escape attack from enemies many years ago. He then promised not to harm, kill or eat crocodiles because he believes they are his ancestors. The pond has become a tourist site because of the over-century-old harmless and friendly crocodiles. The environment is, however, worryingly being taken over by cattle, horses and other stray animals which drop their waste indiscriminately around. The invasion by stray animals is the result of the community deciding to pull down a protective fence wall. Amedu Pagape is the manager and tour guide. Mr. Pagape explains the action was to allow for free movement of the crocodiles into the community to lay eggs.
As you can see the place, at first it was fenced. These crocodiles in the night time, they can walk and go into the community. They walk and go into the community. There they go to lay their eggs.
They lay their eggs in the community?
Yes, they don't lay them around this environment. They go to the community where people stay, and go and dig a hole and lay the eggs there. When they hide, they will now go and bring the babies into the hole. So because the crocodiles do walk out, that is why we first take them down, so that they can get freedom to walk out inside.
And that is not dangerous to people around?
No. In the night you can be driving, you see one crocodile crossing the street, but they don't harm anyone in the community.
To experience the crocodile, a visitor pays 7 cedis for entry and 10 cedis to buy a fowl with which to lure the crocodile out of the pond. So I asked what the money they collect is being used for.
Yeah, some of it goes to the part of the community development. You know, the place is being owned by the community and the chief. So we use part of it for community development, for the Sunday school, and for the Sunday school. We use part of the money for the school and other things in the community.
Just behind me is one of the famous friendly crocodiles in this Paga pond, and this place is one of the major tourist centers in the country. But it is surprising that the environment is not as attractive as the friendly crocodiles. There are horse shit indiscriminately spread all over the pond. A lot of tourists are expected to come here to enjoy themselves, but they come here meeting this strange and strong emanating stench from this environment. So the tourism authorities address this. It could potentially drive a number of tourists away from this pond. My name is Prince Apia, reporting from Paga.